Hi, I'm Erica Wheelis, food and restaurant marketing reporter at Ad Age, and welcome to another edition of the Marketer's Brief podcast, our weekly discussion about marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. Scrub Daddy is often pointed to as a gold standard for engaging TikTok content. The Sponge brand was quick to lean into viral TikTok trends, honing a sarcastic voice and embracing slightly risque content. Being bold has paid off. Scrub Daddy followers have come to expect some snark while also learning about and buying new products. In this episode, Scrub Daddy's social media managers Carrie Longo and Davis Miller will talk about Scrub Daddy's latest partnership with Dunkin', other companies they look to on social media, and what's next for the brand. Now, here's my conversation with Carrie and Davis. All right. So, Carrie Davis, the first thing I want to start with is that you guys recently did a partnership with Dunkin' Donuts, which was very cute. You guys had Scrub Daddies in the shape of donuts. Can you talk a little bit about how that partnership came about? I don't know if people would put donuts and sponges together, in one thought.
It was definitely like a very organic social moment. I think Duncan initially had posted like some sort of Shark Tank related meme. So obviously we saw that and we're like, oh yeah, like just toss a comment in there. And then that kind of turned into a DM conversation, which then turned into us kind of going back and forth, seeing how we could do something together. And I think in that conversation, like there was always in the back of our head, like our CEO is like number one Duncan fan to begin with. So it was like, it always made sense for us to even just be talking to them. It was just a matter of figuring out like exactly how the collaboration would shape out, whether it was, the sponges, which it ended up being, or something else. But yeah, it was just like a very organic conversation.
I appreciate you. You mentioned your CEO. I'm going to ask about him in a second. But sticking with the partnership, was there any, data or consumer insights that told you guys this would resonate? Because it's fun to do a partnership, but you obviously want there to be like, does this make sense for the people that buy our product?
I feel like the answer is no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think the thing that brings us together is like we both kind of have cult followings. There wasn't necessarily like people on both sides being like, there needs to be a Scrub Daddy Duncan collab. But I think we knew that like there was a similar fervor within our audiences that when combined, they would kind of like play very well together.
That makes sense. Related to this, you guys have also done a previous collaboration with Duolingo. Were there any learnings from that partnership that maybe helped inform what you all would do with Duncan?
Yeah, I what we've done with Duolingo in the past, it was more of a meetup than it was a collaboration, I guess. We did make little Duolingo sponges, but we didn't sell them. But tons of people, after seeing those shapes through social media, were constantly asking to make them available, and we never did. It just wasn't what we were going for. So when we started talking to Duncan and realized we wanted this to be a little bit more of an official collaboration, I think that kind of inspired us to really go through with making an actual product that people were able to purchase because people showed interest in us making special limited edition shapes like the Duolingo shape. So that I think translated into the Duncan collab for sure.
And I feel like it kind of solidified for us that like the collab didn't have to be like the collabs that we would do in the future wouldn't always have to be super like thematically aligned. Like we didn't have to collab with another cleaning brand or collab with something very obviously tied to our brand. Like we saw from Duolingo that like if there was like synergy within the brands, regardless of it making sense, quote unquote, that our audience would respond to it.
That
I
makes sense.
think we kind of like that it doesn't make sense. It kind of weirdly adds to the whole effect of it is like, oh, like why are these two brands collabing together? I don't know, but it's cool. So let's just go through with it and see what happens.
I like that, a little bit of just out of the box, but
Hmm.
people have gone with it. Carrie, you mentioned the Scrub Daddy CEO and inventor Aaron Kraus. Has been in a couple of your social media videos, especially for the Duncan collaboration. Was it hard to convince him to be in those?
No, not at all. Like, he loves it, and you can see in the videos that he loves it. Like, the whole time he's, like, giggling like a little kid. He loves being on camera. He loves, like, directing those videos that he's in. Like, if he has an idea, he'll, like, shout it out and we do it, and a lot of the time those make the final cuts. I think even, like, one of the promotional videos that we did was starring him in a Dunkin' drive-through. That was, like, entirely ideated by him in the beginning. Before we even had a product, he was like, "Oh, like, and I can go to a Dunkin', I can go to my local Dunkin' and, like, go through the drive-through and they can give me the fake donuts or whatever." So he it's very easy
Yeah.
to get him to be
In
involved.
short, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's nice. I think it's not too often, perhaps, that you see the business side of a larger company. Who I think maybe it's more common in D2C. So that's funny to see. He wants to be a part of them. He's in them. How has the partnership done with Duncan in terms of sales?
Great.
Yeah, we sold out,
Yeah,
I think within probably a week and a half.
about, yeah.
All right, I want to turn to larger social media questions here. So, Scrub Daddy in general is known for taking some risks on TikTok. And I think you guys are often pointed to for other brands as perhaps a gold standard for that kind of content. When did you first realize that maybe the little bit more quote like unhinged or odd content was gaining traction? And what was that like to say we have to lean into this?
I think it was kind of a slow burn. About 3 years ago, we started jumping on trends a lot more, and you're at the mercy of whatever the trend is, like, we don't create them, and I think over time, like, one trend might be considered a little bit edgier, and we gave that trend a shot, and then the longer it went, the more we realized, like, "Oh, we can do this." Like, people seem to like that we jumped on this trend, and it might happen to be a little bit, quote, "edgy." And I think it kind of just started to spiral into more and more insanity to the point where we are now, where obviously we can't touch on everything, but we get a lot of creative freedom here, which is great. And people really seem to like you said, unhinged content that we do. And we also kind of applied kind of a character to the Scrub Daddy itself. And the more that we applied that unhinged, edgy approach to a literal smiling face sponge, because it's all silly at the end of the day. Like, everyone knows that it's all a joke. It took time. We kind of, okay, let's try this. Okay, let's try that. Let's take it a little bit further each time. And people just really seem to like it.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that we're a very adorable cleaning product, I don't know if it, like, helps us get away with more or, like, makes it funnier that we say some of the things we do, or, like, we've turned it into this kind of angry little character, but it's just like a smiley face. So I feel like that has helped us in being able to be a little bit edgier with our content too.
For sure. When you first started doing this, was it a hard sell to higher ups or stakeholders to convince them that, yeah, it's people are gonna like it. I promise. Like, I know it may not be the thing that you would put on television per se, but it does get traction.
In the beginning, I think there was a little bit of like, hey, like, how about we try this, or can we try this? But our higher ups have really always been very, very good at putting trust into us and giving that creative freedom. And especially considering over time those videos performed well, they realized that, like, oh, like, it's okay. Like, people aren't gonna lose their minds over this. They understand it's just a joke. And the longer that kept consistent, the more it was like, all right, we don't really need to ask for permission with this. We know it's okay.
And I think, like, our CEO is, like, I'm sure in interviews he's said it a million times, but he like sees the positive engagement on them, and he sees people being like, "Oh my God, I love this way of advertising so much more than X, Y, and Z, or like boring advertisements." So everything is very visible to him, and he sees the positive results, and they're also very data driven, like Davis said. Like they see the numbers, and it's hard to fake that. So they just let us go with it now.
That makes sense. Okay, speaking of like I love this certain kind of advertising. I wanted to ask, you guys have done some TikToks where it's the best way I could describe it is like an angry QVC a little bit, where you guys are like, here is the new product. Like you have a damp duster. I think I recall when there was like the Scrub Daddy scrub brush that has the sponge on the end of the head, and it's like, here's what it does, like that's it, keep your stuff clean. It just seemed like, where did that idea come from of like, we have to talk about the new product, here's how we should do it?
I think it kind of just came out of nowhere, to be honest. It's hard to talk about products and talk about the specifics of them without doing some type of voiceover aspect. Because I've seen it plenty of times where companies will like just put something in text on the screen to try to explain, and it doesn't really drive it home. And I didn't want to make it boring at the same time. All of our other content was fun and edgy and this and that. So I kind of tried to blend information with entertainment is the best way I can describe it. And just being very, very blunt and sarcastic and dry. And it worked. The first few that I did just happened to perform well. And it's a really good way to, especially when we have new products, to really just get the word out there and explain them. And it all of this is kind of like a overtime sort of thing. You have to tweak things. You have to see this thing doesn't work, that thing doesn't work, but this thing does. And over time, it showed success, and it still does. So
I also feel like we kind of like translated the voice that we were using in the comment section already.
yeah,
Like we're very, I don't want to say like mean in the comments, but we're very like to the point. Like if someone says something like stupid, we're gonna respond in a way that it's like, oh, did you not read the caption? The link's in our bio. So I feel like that voice translated well into Davis's like yelling at them about the products.
Do you have advice for other brands who may look at your content, especially on TikTok, and say, we want to do something like this? What are maybe one or two things that they should know or try or keep in mind if they are trying to emulate that style?
I guess like we're always big fans of saying that failure is okay. Not every video or every concept or every idea that you put into a post is gonna work, and that's fine. And it's also, if you're trying to find your voice, obviously that's kind of a work in progress sort of thing. So like don't get discouraged if you're trying out a new form of content that may be a little bit more edgy, or might be you're trying to go down a more humorous route or something. Like don't get discouraged if you post X amount of posts and they happen to not do well. Just constantly try to tweak things to see what resonates with the audience, and then just keep that mindset going forward, I think is a good starter for other brands.
Yeah, I would say also just like listening to your audience and like knowing your audience is like crucial for creating content that's going to resonate, because like our style of content works for our audience, but if a brand is just like trying to emulate what we're doing and their audience is not interested in seeing that, like it's not going to work. So what we're doing isn't going to work for everyone, and what other people are doing isn't going to work for us. And like Davis said, it's like just experimenting, not being afraid to fail and have a video flop or whatever. It's social media. It's not that serious. Try things.
I did want to ask about audience in general. First off, can you talk a little bit about who your target audience is on TikTok versus Instagram? Are they different? If so, how?
They are basically like mirror images of each other at this point in terms of like demographics. We have on TikTok more dominant male audience. So I think it's like 70-30 male to female, and then the reverse on Instagram, it's 70-30 female to male. But I think, like, honestly, at this point, we're not necessarily trying to reach everyone, but I think our brand voice flows more seamlessly through all of our social media platforms currently. I think initially TikTok was like reserved for the more risky content. We could be a little bit more out of the box there, but now most of our audience, even on Facebook, where I don't think you would think we could get away with some of the things we post there, I think our audience overall has just become used to the idea that they're going to see some crazier stuff from us across all platforms.
We set an expectation.
Yeah, exactly. There are obviously like different trends on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, but I think the overall tone of our content doesn't change too much based on our different audiences.
Interesting. Okay, can you also talk about your core audience? How are you all thinking about millennials versus Gen Z versus maybe like an older audience?
I mean, we want everybody to know about Scrub Daddy and use Scrub Daddy. With the start of like TikTok, at least, that definitely helped us reach a much younger audience. Beforehand, I think it was more towards millennials were probably the youngest we had. Then it was Gen X and then baby boomers and just older folks in general on like Facebook and stuff. But, we want to reach everybody in each platform. Like Carrie said, our brand voice in general is kind of starting to transcend through all of them, and everyone just knows what to expect. But there still are different demographics of people that tend to use a certain platform. TikTok still is definitely on the younger side, at least the vast majority of them are. And older folks tend to be on Facebook. But through each platform, we're able to contact and get our content out to pretty much everybody. And that's what we want to be doing at the end of the day.
Sticking with TikTok, I saw that you guys also use TikTok Shop, and I wanted to ask about that. So when did you start using it? How has it been going? If you can even give a percent of like, how many sales come through TikTok Shop?
We probably got on TikTok Shop, what, like a year ago, I think? We
About
were like, I think one of the first brands, at least in our category, to kind of go full force on it. Like we had conversations with TikTok and we kind of tested with them what worked. And now we're like fully on there making our e-commerce directors life a nightmare because sales are going well on there. But yeah, I don't know, like if we can give exact figures, I can definitely say that it's going very well and has like shifted, I think, a lot of our e-com traffic over to TikTok Shop. And we also implemented the TikTok Shop affiliate program, which has like skyrocketed our shop even more on there. So I think just more and more sales are going on TikTok, and I think that's what TikTok as a platform is trying to do. So I think we're like trying to find a balance of, because personally I don't like love shopping on TikTok constantly. So like we want to be visible on there but not too annoying, and that's always been our philosophy is like we're not huge on the hard sell of it all. So it's been an interesting learning experience figuring out how to navigate the kind of new format of TikTok Shop and like the tagging of products and videos and all of that.
I agree. I also would not want to be constantly bombarded with things to buy. I recall I feel like it's dropped off a little bit, but I remember that being very annoying for general users a little while ago.
Yeah, I do
Yes.
think
Yeah,
it's balanced out a little bit. I think like the algorithm has sorted itself out, but for a second there it was like every other video would be like, I found this on the TikTok
literally.
shop.
Very true. Doing like just a 30,000-foot view a little bit. When you guys look at the social media landscape, what do you think is the biggest change that you have seen in the last few years?
I think in general, like other brands being more risky and having more of a voice and being okay with taking those risks. And we're doing the same thing. But like 3 years ago, when Carrie and I started, that idea was still pretty new. And there were very few brands out there that were doing that. All of their social media was, not to hate, but a little bit boring, and everything kind of looked the same, and the focus on super polished content was still like a huge thing. And over the last 3 years, that has definitely changed. Other brands are definitely more on board with posting edgier, funnier, less polished content. And I think that concept in general has definitely shifted towards the brand end of just social media in general.
Yeah, I came from like a background. I was at like an agency before this. Like it was very focused on like creating, I don't know, very polished, high quality content. I was like going around with like a DSLR camera, taking photos of things, that kind of stuff. To now it's like everything shot on iPhone. Like footage can be shaky. Everything can feel a lot more organic. And I think like brands are just much more engaged with their audiences on social media. So like there's just a larger sense of community around individual brands where before it was kind of like personally on my own time, like I would go to a brand's page to like, get updates, see if there's a sale going on, but now people are going to brands pages for content and for storytelling and that kind of stuff, where brands I think are just becoming more hubs of entertainment regardless of the industry, in a way that was not happening 6 7 years ago.
For sure. Are there any brands that you personally look at or admire their social content?
That's like a huge topic in our office and day to day is like, oh, look what so and so did. Like, obviously, we're big fans of Duo. We've worked with them several times. Like, every brand we've worked with so far, there was a reason for it. So, Duo, Dunkin', Benefit, and Carrie, do you have any specific ones that you like what they're doing, or?
I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I obviously love like the OGs, like Wendy's,
Slim Jim.
Slim Jim is a classic. I don't know, and like all the brands that are in our comments all the time, like shout out Carl's Jr.
Yeah. It's really funny that, like, just what you said there, Carrie, like, the way that we're speaking, like, shout out to the OGs, like Wendy's and Slim Jim, like, it's in the scheme of brands being entertaining, because they were, like, in the days of, like, Twitter, especially Wendy's, like, they were looked at as the pioneers in, like, being entertaining on social, and it's just funny that because we work in this space, the way that we talk about it.
What is next for Scrub Daddy? What can we expect to see from you guys in the coming months?
I think more brand collaborations, definitely. This past like year has, I think, proven to our leadership that that's kind of the direction that we want to go in. So definitely more of that kind of stuff, more unhinged content,
Newer products.
new products always.
We are working every day to get our products available worldwide, and that's like that just takes up a lot of folks' time here at Scrub Daddy. It's like a huge goal, and every day we're working hard to get our products available in every single country, because that's the end goal, is that we want to be like a true household name throughout the entire world. So more countries for sure, newer products for sure. Yeah.
That was Scrub Daddy's social media managers, Carrie Longo and Davis Miller. I'm Erica Wheelis, food and restaurant marketing reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and invite you to subscribe to The Marketer's Brief wherever you get your podcasts. We promise to keep it brief, or at least short enough for your morning coffee. Thanks for tuning in.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.